It's more challenging than ever to meet the demands of competing priorities that work throws our way. From emails to reports and project proposals, we need help to get it all done. Grammarly is the essential AI communication assistant that boosts your productivity at work so you can get more of what you need done faster, no matter what or where you're writing. Grammarly sets the standard for responsible AI and equips you with the best tools to do your job, like AI-powered features that help you write and edit quickly everywhere you write, or tone features that help you communicate more confidently. Just a few clicks can tailor your tone and writing so you come across exactly as you intend. No wonder 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Let Grammarly take the busy work off your plate so you can focus on high-impact work. Download Grammarly for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's grammarly.com/podcast.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Betting on sports can be hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury firm. They have over 100 offices nationwide and more than 1,000 lawyers. Their fee is free until they win. Find out more information at forthepeople.com/bestbets or dial pound law, that is pound 529 from your cell phone, and that is FOR, thepeople.com/bestbets. This is a paid advertisement. And we're from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got a great podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, as we're going to have aboard Ryan Mcintyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're going to chat with him about what we've been seeing the last few weeks in college basketball, some of the teams that he's starting to feel a little bit bullish/bearish on, some of the things that he takes a look at in terms of handicapping these next few days in college basketball as well, because you do have yourselves a circumstance where a lot of these kids, they are not on campus right now. They are back at home for Christmas break, what have you, and hopefully you're enjoying some time with your friends and family as well. If you're out there listening and if you're on break, hopefully you're enjoying it, and hopefully we can make you guys some money on this break as well. And then on the final segment, I'm going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Friday, as we hit some bank shots. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you, for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at JNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but we had a fun day of college basketball on Thursday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Zot for the UC Irvine Anteaters. They get the job done once again. 92-84. They have a whopping 67 points in the first half against Belmont. They were actually trailing by 14 points at the half. Matter of fact, if you look at things, they were down 13 with about 12 and a half minutes remaining, and then they go on a massive charge. Bent Lutken was able to supply the team with 23 points. For Belmont, they lose this game despite going 15 of 38 from three-point range, and they won the turnover battle 17-11, but got bludgeoned on the glass, losing that battle 40-29. And for UC Irvine, Lutken also 15 rebounds in this game, so they're looking very rock solid right now. And we had ourselves a lot of Ohio Valley Conference play as well, which I'm always a sucker for some good conference play this time of year. And Southeast Missouri State, they're now 6-3 against the spread. They were able to get the job done against Eastern Illinois. This by kind of 79-72 has been a nice little turnaround for Southeast Missouri State this far this season, as they go 10 of 22 from three-point range in this one. They do lose the turnover battle and also rebound battle 34-24, but you had 20 points, 10 rebounds by Teddy Washington, so he was able to help the team persevere and be able to get the job done out there. Lindenwood now 3-6 against the spread. They were a favorite and lost outright to Tennessee Tech by kind of 79-73, so a little bit bit less than savory there, and this has not been so savory as well. What we've been seeing out of St. Mary's against the spread thus far this season is they are now 3-7 against the spread, unable to cover against Merrimack, and Merrimack gave them a good run for their money, 73-68. Final in this one now for the Merry Men of Merrimack. They are called the Warriors, but I call them the Merry Men. They went 12 of 21 from three-point range, as you had 4 of your 5 starters put in there at least 12 points for St. Mary's. They were able to get by with Mitchell Saxon being able to supply 18 points, 12 rebounds, and Paulius Marasukis was able to give you 11 boards and 18 points as well. But for Merrimack, they were able to hold in there despite losing the rebound battle 38-18, as they just went bombs away from three-point range. And, well, it has been a little bit less than savory for Pepperdine this season as well, as they lose at home to Long Beach State 79-76. Long Beach State to begin the season looked very miserable. All of a sudden, they've been able to get things going with Devin Askew providing 18 points, and off the bench, TJ Wainwright, 26 points, 8 boards. So a very nice performance out there. Operation Fade Chicago State was unsuccessful if you took it, as Grand Canyon got the win, but no cover by a count of 74-51. Not too much to be concerned about here, but look at this Grand Canyon team. They've been one of the least profitable against the spread in all of college basketball this year. Now 2-8 against the spread. Chicago State 6 of 20 from 3, but for Grand Canyon, they were even worse. 4 of 17 from 3-point range. Luck War was able to come in off the bench. He was able to supply the team with 20 points, so that was helpful for them. Wyoming, well, they were able to help out your bankroll 92-55. They take it to Bellarmine, as Bellarmine has been having a rough season themselves, and for Wyoming, they go 14 of 18 from 3-point range with Obi Ijbeam. Hopefully I said that correctly. Going for 8 of 10 3-point shooting and 28 big points. So that was a nice, clean, easy win for them. A team that has been nice, clean, and easy to the over has been South Dakota. And South Dakota, they play another over, but they cannot close out against Utah Tech. They were leading this game by double figures towards back half of it as well. As a matter of fact, they were up 11 points with 6+ minutes remaining, and then the game toilet bowled on them as they lose by a count of 92-87. They're up at one point 82-73 with a little bit over 3 minutes remaining as well. So this was a pretty big upchucking by South Dakota, as they go 8 of 21 from 3, in Utah Tech 13 of 29 from 3-point range. Beyond Riley, their top scorer, had been out due to injury, returned with 21 points, 14 rebounds, and for Southern Utah, they lose a turnover battle by a count of 8-7, but they win the rebound battle 41-36. So they persevere and they find a way to be able to get the job done, as New Orleans has been one of your best over teams in all of college basketball over really the last few seasons now. They're able to get another over, and they do not get the job done against the spread against Texas. 98-62 the final, as Texas began the season as one of your better over teams, 6-4-2 now to the over thus far this season. But that said, for the Texas bunch, they had Jordan Pope go off for 42 points in this one, 8 of 12 from 3-point range. New Orleans, 13 of 25 is what they allowed Texas to go from 3-point range. They lost the rebound battle. New Orleans did by a count of 45-36, but you were able to have 4 starters be able to get into double figures. And for New Orleans, they have been just 5-5 to the over. They've actually been your best over team since coming onto the betting board prior to the start of the 2018-19 season. So we will see if that continues moving forward out there in the Atlantic Sun. It has been a good year thus far for Northern Alabama, and for North Alabama, they do get the job done with a win and cover over Charleston Southern, this by a count of 86-69, and now they're 8-4 against the spread. So it's been a nice start to the season for them. North Alabama had Tay Fields be their main man in this one. He was able to supply the team with 25 points, and for Middle Tennessee, they just barely get it done against Lipscomb. Lipscomb now 7-3-1 against the spread, with Middle Tennessee in a lot of places closing as about a 1.5 favorite, so you just barely got there on this one. 67-65 the final for Lipscomb. Been a little bit down with their 3-point shooting this year, 4 of 18 from 3-point range, and for Middle Tennessee, they were able to do a nice job of winning the rebound battle 47-29 with Isam Mustafa, a pair of blocks, 10 rebounds, 12 points in this one to be able to power that team to victory. And for Middle Tennessee, now 7-2-1 against the spread, and you've got in the Conference USA all but 2 teams right now covering at least 60% of their games, as you've got Middle Tennessee, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, and Western Kentucky all covering at least 77.5% of their games, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, that has been very interesting to see, to say the least. And Georgia, they barely got the over against Buffalo. They had to do all the heavy lifting. 100-49. Buffalo, well, they got smoked in this one. They get doubled up, as For Buffalo, 19 turnovers on 18 made field goals. For Georgia, 5 turnovers on 37 made field goals. Buffalo wins the rebound battle in this one by a count of 41-30. Just thorough domination all across the board. Asa Newell, one of the more underrated freshmen in all of college basketball. He was able to supply the team with 16 points, but that was very much a well-rounded effort there. And for Norfolk State, they've been one of your better over teams to begin the season, but no over in this one as they hold down Alabama State 71-54 for the Chris Paul HBCU Classic there, doing that over at Mohegan Sun. And for Alabama State, shot 31% from the floor, 3 of 26 from three-point range, so less than savory there. And what we have seen out of the offenses of Cleveland State along with Oakland this year have been a little bit less than savory as well, but these two teams woke up in a very big way on Thursday as you had Cleveland State get the job done 92-75 the final, just the second over of the year for Oakland. But for Oakland, they were able to erupt a little bit more from three, 13 of 31 from the outside. You had Max Christie come in, give the team 19 points. DQ Cole had 22 points, but Devin Smith, 37 points, 6 rebounds, an absolute flamethrower of a night. And if you're taking a look at what we're getting in college basketball, that's been a little bit more of an overwhelming season thus far this season. Over the last 7 days, we haven't seen the unders coming through a little bit more, 123 unders to 120 overs, and along those lines as well, the favorites have been coming through 125, 118, and 4 against the spread over the last 7 days. But overall for the season, it's been more about overs and it's been more about underdogs. Underdogs hitting at 51.1%, 934, 894, and 28 against the spread, while the over sitting at about 50.5%, 923 overs to 907 unders. So that's what we're seeing in college basketball right now, and that's what we all got on Thursday. Now let's take a look at Friday. Let's take a look at what we're getting in the hierarchy of so many of these conferences, and so much more with our good friend Ryan Mcintyre of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network next, right here on Coach Good Seats with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Houston Family Podcast. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coach Good Seats with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Houston Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Ryan Mcintyre aboard, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Take a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. Does a great job over with our good friend Kobe Dant with the show, The College Experience. For those that are fans of West Virginia basketball as well, he does the Ryan and Rush show on that front, as well as new times coming for the West Virginia football team as well. And you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Moneyline_Mac, a true appreciator of whenever I wear my West Virginia jersey when I do my beer reviews as well. So we love that, and we love getting you aboard, Ryan. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Greg. And yes, love the throwback Final Four jersey from 2010 via Kevin Jones. Always a fan.
Yes, sir. And I love those jerseys as well. I am a big fan of being able to go back to like my high school/college days and all the jerseys I had back then as well. So that was a fun one. And it's also fun to just be seeing what we're getting in college basketball right now, because the SEC has been oh so dominant. It has been incredible what we've been seeing out of them. Just how do you take a look at the hierarchy of college basketball? Because for so long it was the Big 12 that was the most dominant conference in all of college basketball. But that tide, in my opinion, has truly shifted this year, with the Big 12, in my opinion, being that clear number 2 conference.
Absolutely. And it's really been remarkable because the SEC football's having a down year. They just took it over to basketball now. Their record against the ACC is an amazing, and honestly, I had to double check this. They're 30-4 against the ACC through 34 games this year. I never thought you would hear those words come out of any of our mouths. But I think, Greg, it's just a landscape of they've really, really invested in these programs. The coaching hires is the main thing that I look at over the time, whether it's Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, Todd Golden, Nate Oates. You got Mark Pope, Buzz Williams, Chris Jans, Chris Beard, Porter Mosier. You got Mike White, obviously Calipari. You got Dennis Gates. You got Matt McMahon. You also got Mark Byington and Lamont Paritz. All those guys have had success at other programs, and a lot have been the premier mid-major candidate on the trail or on the coaching carousel for that respective year. It's an indicative of really investing in their programs, and it's been slowly a trickle-down effect of how good this program's been.
Yeah, it has been amazing as to what we've been seeing there. And then looking on your side of things at West Virginia, they've been one of the better surprises, I would say, in the Big 12 because the Big 12 has had plenty of them. Arizona was able to take it to Sam Amford a few days ago, but man, they've been a little bit of a disappointment, but West Virginia has been better than expected. I think it's fair to say that Colorado has been better than expected as well, along with Arizona State. The newcomers in the Big 12 have actually done much more than what I've been expecting. And just how do you take a look at the hierarchy of the Big 12? Because we know when it's all said and done, Kansas is going to be having a lot to say with regards to conference, even with 3 losses. Houston is as well. But I feel like the teams that we thought were going to be the clear bottom of the Big 12 have been much better than expected. And sort of those middle teams have been a little bit of a letdown.
I think you're absolutely right. I think with the Big 12, it's still like from a top to bottom, it's just an unbelievable league. They just don't have maybe as many top 50 teams as the SEC this year. You have your clear tier one, whether it's Kansas year in and year out. Iowa State is really, under Otzelberger, turned into a consistent winner. Kelvin Sampson in Houston. Then you got Baylor and Scott Drew. And then I think you got a solid tier two with the Texas Techs of the world, Cincinnati. I do think Arizona will ultimately get there, even though they've been a little bit disappointing. And then, of course, you got like BYU's, West Virginia, Arizona State. And the teams that have been disappointing are 2 traditional Big 12 teams, and that is TCU and Kansas State, in my opinion.
Yeah, but absolutely. And with that Cincinnati bunch that you just mentioned, they're in what I think is really the game of the night on Friday, taking on Dayton in a neutral court environment at Heritage Bank Center. And what do you make out of this game? Because with Dayton, their defensive numbers aren't quite as good as they have been in the past, but as we know, they played a just ridiculous slate out there in Maui that warps their numbers a little bit. And for Cincinnati, I've liked what I've seen from them thus far, but they haven't necessarily played the world's greatest competition either. And I think that this is going to be a really interesting litmus test for both of these teams.
Yeah, and this is a rematch of a game where Dayton really took control of the game last year against Cincinnati. I like the Bearcats. I think they found themselves a little bit in that second half against Xavier last Saturday. And then, I mean, I also just look at what Dayton's gone through over the last week or so, winning emotional game after emotional game. The comeback win over Marquette, then holding your breath, hoping that UNLV missed at the buzzer. I think Cincinnati's size will wear down Dayton. It's all laid in 3.
With the Bearcats, they certainly have the size down low. I have a few question marks with regards to backcourt. I don't think that they're going to continue to shoot 38% from 3 all season long. I think that that's really the byproduct of the competition that we've seen. But the guys like Aziz Bendango and company down low, to your point, man, those guys can really get after it. And we always get after it with Ryan Mcintyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And certainly one of the big takeaways that I think that both of us have had over the last few weeks since Feast Week has been the dominance of the SEC. But what do you make out of just the overall hierarchy of college basketball outside of that? Because we've seen some very interesting games over the last few weeks, like Oklahoma sealing that one from Michigan a few nights ago. That was one of the games of the year right there. But I take a look at what we're seeing in the Big Ten, the Big East, and I think that there's a lot of interest there because I think all across college basketball, there aren't really a lot of conferences where you've got those 1 or 2 top flight teams. And certainly in the Big East, I think that it's much more of a mismatch than what we've seen in past years.
I think you're absolutely right. You kind of got your top tier with Marquette, UConn, and St. John's, but after that, I feel like it's wide open. Villanova and Georgetown, 2 teams that I think that we wrote off for dead, and even Providence maybe are able to sneak in and be one of those middle tier teams. Creighton's been a big time disappointment. I do want to shout out a couple mid-major leagues, Greg, just talk about the hierarchy of college basketball. And I just think that the Big West has had an unbelievable non-con so far, whether it's UC San Diego going to Logan and getting a big win and the 10-2 resume that they have. UC Irvine, they've been really good at 9-1. And then Riverside, Davis, even Northridge and Santa Barbara. I feel like the Big West is more up than it has been in the past as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. With the Big West Conference play, I think that that's going to be a lot of fun. Certainly it's been a little bit of a down year for Long Beach State, but past that, these teams have really been able to fire on all cylinders out there. And I think that the Missouri Valley is going to be really interesting as well. Like, we're going to be seeing UIC on the road against Seattle right now. That's a line of 6.5, and I'd be willing to take those points with UIC personally. And I think that that's going to be a fun league as well with the team of Murray State that, even with their loss to Indiana State a few days ago, I'm in on them. You were just mentioning that UC Irvine versus Belmont game. Belmont with a relatively spirited effort in that one yesterday as well. And I look at that entire Missouri Valley Conference, and that's another one of those conferences where I think a lot of people might default to Bradley, who just knocked off San Francisco as being that top team. But I think that there's going to be a lot of fun to be had in that conference as well.
Oh, absolutely. And don't sleep on those Drake Bulldogs. Ben McCollum starting 10-0. I mean, they go to Charleston, they get a win. They beat Kansas State. They host Doug Gottlieb on Sunday, so that'll be an entertaining one. Hopefully he doesn't call Drake nobody you like Michigan Tech. But yeah, Greg, you're absolutely right. The thing I love about the Missouri Valley is it's a true basketball league. These towns live and die by their basketball teams. There's not much football compared to some of the other leagues. I mean, Murray State, they love the Racers, the proud tradition there. Belmont, you mentioned it. You got Northern Iowa, Bradley, Drake. Indiana State, they're playing better under first-year head coach Graves. You got Southern Illinois with Scott Nagy, Illinois State and Normal with Ryan Peden. I just feel like this is a really good basketball league with really good fan bases, and they have one of the best postseason tournaments as well every year.
I think we're finding a commonality with our chat right now as well, Ryan. We were just talking about the SEC and their rise. What did that start with? Good coaching hires the last few years. How has the Missouri Valley Conference been a good mid-major league? Good coaching hires, like even bringing back Konzo Martin from Missouri State. He's done some good things over there. You bring back Steve Prohm over at Murray State. You've got some tried and true guys. And then they go to the D2 ranks. Obviously, a few years ago with Indiana State bringing in Josh Schertz, a proven winner in Ben McCollum this year at Drake. And just how do you look at that right now in college basketball? Because I think that the conferences that are hiring on these good coaches like the Missouri Valley Conference, looking at these great D2 guys, is paying off for them. Well, people are looking at, I don't know, part-time radio show hosts and part-time coaches. Yeah, you know what? Their programs are either stuck in neutral or going down the toilet bowl.
Yeah, and Greg, I would expand upon that. I mean, the Gottlieb thing is just honestly a joke. I mean,
it's a slap in the face of college basketball. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, and it's a slap in the face of coaches that have grinded for decades and done it the right way, guys that are really qualified at the JUCO level, NAIA, D2 and D3, that would do a great job with that program like Sundance Wicks did last year. And for him to just think that he could be a radio show host, it's comical. You live and die by these jobs. You're judged off of wins and losses, nothing else. But nevertheless, I look at the ACC, Greg, though. I feel like that's been one of the biggest reasons why the ACC has come down from what used to be the dominant league in college basketball to the worst Power 5 league in America and getting closer and closer to a mid-major league, in my opinion, outside of Duke because of the hires. We've had legends retire, whether it's Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Boeheim. You go down the list, we're going to have Larinaga retire. Leonard Hamilton's going to retire. Tony Bennett retired. And I just think that the hires have been lazy and underwhelming. And I think that's why these fan bases and these programs have kind of taken a step back compared to the SEC that we just highlighted in the Missouri Valley at the mid-major level and the Mountain West. I think that's been one of the reasons why the Mountain West has really been able to stay consistent as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, you look at Utah State, every single hire that they've made since Stu Morrill has paid off for them in droves. So, I mean, it has been incredible to see what they've done there. Have to say the Vance Wahlberg hire out there in the Mountain West, that's one that I didn't necessarily love, but past that, I mean, you're willing to forgive one bad hire because the rest of them have been pretty good to your point, but I do think that that's so big in college basketball as well, and certainly with St. John's, the hire of Slick Rick Pitino, I think that anyone would call that a pretty good hire, and that's going to be a big game that we're going to be seeing on Friday as well. Them on the road against Providence as about 5.5 to 6 point favorites. How do you take a look at both this game and St. John's and really Providence moving forward as well? Because for Providence, just feels like they're a rudderless team that has no idea what they're going to get out of Bryce Hopkins. Meanwhile, for St. John's, it feels like ever since that loss to Baylor, which, I mean, let's call it what it is. They got the short end of the stick on that one. They've just been a different team.
They really have. St. John's playing good ball since losing to Georgia, those 2 games in the Bahamas like we talked about. Providence, they're an interesting team, but one place I do like to back them, especially when they're an underdog, Greg, is at the dunk or whatever they call it now. So I'm going to be on Providence with the points. I think Bryce Hopkins will play. I know they sat him out last game against the Bonnies for a precautionary reason. So I just think that it's going to be that Big East battle, really physical. And this game always does have a little more juice when Rick Pitino's going back to Providence because he took them to the Final Four once upon a time.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that they're trying to call it Amica Fieldhouse. Let's call it what it is. It's always going to be the dunk in our eyes, just like where the Milwaukee Brewers play. That is always Miller Park. It's not America Family Field. It's Miller Park, gosh darn it. And with regards to what we've got for Friday, anything else that you're going to have your eyes on as we hit upon the couple of marquee games that we're going to be having? Anything else that's really standing out to you?
I think I'm going to take the points with Akron against Yale. I like Akron in that neutral site game in El Paso. I just think that their size, physicality can give Yale some fits. I know Yale's been really good so far in the non-con, so I'm looking to get in on Akron. And then, of course, I like Cincinnati in the late slate and Providence as well as a home dog.
Absolutely. I think that there's going to be some great action to be had on Friday, and we've got the old Sun Bowl Invitational, as well as college football is in our lives with bowl season. College basketball is getting hot and heavy. I know that you, Ryan, are doing a great job of gauging it all. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
I appreciate it, Greg. Yeah, I'm really fired up. We are getting into the best time of year. November and December are great because we do have college basketball back, but we're finally getting into conference play from here all the way to March. So can't wait. Check us out every night over at the College Basketball Experience. And, of course, West Virginia fans, go check out the Ryan and Rush Show.
Absolutely, as Ryan does a tremendous job on the West Virginia front, the college basketball front, the college football front, you name it, he does it, and every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So, big thanks to Ryan for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VC Family Podcast, and coming next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this College Basketball Friday, as we hit some big shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VC Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Ryan Mcintyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Taking a look at this great game of college basketball that we all know and love. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights. Did so once again today, so a big thanks to Ryan for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this College Basketball Friday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at GNet_D1. Going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the games involving bigger conferences first, and then those two games involving the Sun Bowl Invitational will be after that, and then the extra games board. This is the MEAC, the SWAC, along with the Patriot League. I think that we've hit all those conferences. If I haven't said so already, the Big South, those are going to be the games that are going to be at the bottom. So how about if we do get things started with 871, 872 on the card. Western Michigan is going to be playing as Valparaiso. Valparaiso between a pick'em to a 1-point underdog, and this game it is 151 to 151.5, and I'll be writing this one up. I like Western Michigan in this spot. I did set them as a 4-point favorite. I think that Western Michigan should be able to do a nice job being able to control the glass, as they're a top 50 team right now in terms of rebound rate. Like what I'm seeing out of Owen Lobsinger. Guy saying 6'8". He's able to give you about 6 or so rebounds per game. He's been able to throw in their double figures at 6'8". Has been able to shoot it well from 3-point range as well. At the very least, he did so last year. Been a little bit down with that this year, but do think that that is going to be rebounding just a skoch. And then for Valparaiso, you've been dealing with the Isaiah Stafford injury all season long. He was their top scorer from a season ago. Now you have a nice trio of guys: Cooper Schwieger, Tyler Schmidt, along with Jefferson De La Cruz Monegro, who have all been able to give you 11.5 to 12.5 points per contest. Schwieger has been your main guy down low with about 7 boards a block per game, but for Valparaiso, they are shooting just 32% from 3. Now, the good news for this team is that if they're in a nip and tuck game, they're shooting 82.5% of the free throw line. That's one of the best marks that you're going to find in all of college basketball. They've kept things relatively clean with regards to their offense as well, only turned the ball over 10 times per game, but Darius DiViero was only giving you about 4.5 points per game. He does throw in there about 3.5 assists, a steal per game, but he was very limited in that last game against Ohio State, only played 13 minutes, did not score a single point, and seemed like he went out with a little bit of an injury. So that's something that you do want to be watching out for Valparaiso as well. Meanwhile, Markai Strickland, who's over on the Western Michigan side of things, he's been able to come on strong for the team recently. He's been able to throw in there double figures in all but one of the team's last 6 games, with the lone exception being when he scored 8 points. You really don't have that main guy that's able to dole out the ball as EJ Reynolds, right now leading the way with about 1.9 assists per game. But I do think that for Western Michigan, they're going to be able to buckle down a little bit more with their defense, as they have given up 77 plus points before their last 5 games, but they've been playing against quite a few more up-tempo teams. For Valparaiso, the defense has been very lackadaisical as well, but again, playing against teams that are going up and down the floor quite a bit more, I think that this game is going to be a little bit more tamed, and don't think that there's going to be a lot of second chances for Valparaiso, which allows Western Michigan to get the job done. So, did sell Western Michigan as a 4-point favorite. I'm going to be writing up them on a pick'em / laying the 1, and with regards to total, in on the under semi-total 144. 873, 874 on the betting board. Seattle is going to be playing us Illinois, Chicago. UIC is an underdog of 6 to 7 points. Dawn's game is 145.5. Another game that I'll write up, as I will be writing up the points with UIC. I did set them as an underdog of 3.5 points. Seattle in quite a bit of transition from a season ago. They lose their top scorer in Cam Tyson. Jason Christophilius has been able to step in, give the team about 12 points per contest, and I like what Matthew Alexander Moncrief has brought to the table. He's supplying the team with 14 points, 10.5 rebounds per game. Here's the issue that you've got with him, though. Has not played the last 2 games, and without him, this is a Seattle team that's just not quite the same bunch as they were able to get a win over a non-Division One school, and I believe it was like Pacific University, and then against Western Kentucky, gave up 86 without him, as you don't have really anyone other than the 4 points and 5 rebounds per game of Malik Goma outside of Alexander Moncrief that's giving you north of 3 rebounds per game, so they're going to get decimated there by a UIC team that has been one of the best teams in all of college basketball, being able to get second chance opportunities with Sasa Sani being able to supply the team with 12 points, 10.5 rebounds per game. He actually pops a few threes with his size as well. Now for UIC, they need to buckle it down with regards to the turnovers. They've been turning the ball right around about 14 times per game, but Javon Jackson, he's able to give you 12 plus points per contest. He's been able to do a relatively solid job. I'll be able to hit some threes. And then additionally with the Seattle team, they are 305th in all of college basketball in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, with UIC to go a little bit more specific in road games, 20th in the country in terms of percentage of missed shots that they do turn into an offensive rebound as well. For Seattle, I think that they're going to have a tough time on the glass, especially with the Moncrief injury. Malik Arrington has been able to give you about 5 assists per game, but it's a Seattle team that they turn the ball over a little bit too much as well, as he himself has been turning the ball over just under 3 times per game, about 12.5 turnovers per game. For Seattle right now, they're dealing with injury, and I do think that UIC is going to be able to remain lively in this game. Did set my total at a 145.5. I was seeing a little bit earlier on this total being more around about a 146, 147. At that point, I'd be willing to take a shot on the under, but I'm going to be writing up UIC. Do like the points with them. 875, 876 on the betting board. The Quakers of Penn are going to be playing us. So Ryder does find themselves as a underdog of 2.5 to 3 points. So on this game, it is between 132 to 132.5. Did set my line at a 135.5 in terms of total. I'm in on the over for Penn. This has been a bottom 125 team in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And for Ryder, I do think that we're going to see a little bit of positivity with their 3-point shooting. This team in general just has been the victims of some bad shooting, like in my opinion. They're shooting 27.5% from 3-point range. This despite the fact that your top 2 scorers in DJ Weeks, Jay Alvarez, they're combined for 24 points per game. They're combined to shoot north of 35% between the two of them from 3-point range, but I do think that Ingram squared is going to be able to help this team remain lively in the game, as Tariq Ingram has been able to give you about 10.5 points, 6.5 rebounds per game, and Effie West Ingram chips in there about 4 boards per contest. But I do think that the versatility of Nick Spinoza going to be a little bit too much. Big reason why I did set Penn as a 3.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay Ethan Roberts, who's come in from Army, has been able to give this Penn team 17 points, 5 boards, shooting about 34.5% from 3. And again with Penn, they're shooting 27.5% from 3 as well, but they're keeping things relatively clean, about 11.3 turnovers per game. Meanwhile, Ryder a little bit over 13 turnovers per game, and a big reason why Nick Spinoza is a nice ball handler at 6'9". He's giving the team 3.5 assists, 7 boards, 12 points per game, throwing in there about a steal per contest as well, so he's got really nice versatility. It's a Penn team that's coming off of a little bit of a long break as well. They haven't played in about 10 or 11 games. Their last game was against VCU on the 9th, so I actually think that in this case might help them out just a little bit because they weren't having to deal with any real basketball activities with regards to finals, but I do expect a little bit more as well out of Sam Brown, a guy that last year gave the team 11 points per game, shot north of 40% from 3, shooting just 25% from distance thus far this season. Do think that should be going northward, and I do think that Penn finds a way to be able to get the job done against the Ryder team that's been a little bit sketchy with regards to their overall defense as well. It's a bunch that has given up approximately 72 points in 4 of their last 5 games. They just have not been able to get out of neutral offensively for Penn. They themselves have been held to 53 points or fewer in every game here in the month of December. I do think that they're going to bust out just a little bit more in this game. I do think that both of these teams see some 3-point shooting positivity, so in on the over, so my total 135.5 and 1 to lay up to 3 with Penn. 877, 878 on the betting board. St. Peter's is going to be playing against Delaware. Delaware is a 2 to 2.5 point underdog. Total on this game is between 142.5 to a 144, and set St. Peter's as a 3-point favorite, and then I will be writing up the under in this game as well. Have a St. Peter's team that is once again one of the slowest teams in all of college basketball, 325th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. St. Peter's not quite as dominant defensively as they have been in the past. They're outside the top 125 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but I was willing to set them as a 3-point favorite, as St. Peter's has actually been shockingly good from the outside, shooting 37% as collected from 3-point range. Marcus Randolph has led the way. He's shooting 42% from the outside with a little bit over 16 points per game and has been pretty darn consistent with that regard. 13 plus points in 3 of the last 5 games. You've been able to get back in the fold as well. Mohamed So, he was missing for 3 games a little bit earlier in the season. He's been one of their top leaders on the glass with being able to give the team a little bit over steals, 6 boards per game. So do like what he brings to the table against a Delaware team that I think that they're going to have a tough time on the glass, as John Camden has shown nice versatility at 6'7", 6'8", comes in from Virginia Tech, 15 points, right around about 5 boards, shooting 38.5% from 3. And Delaware as a whole has been a top 55 team with regards to their three-point shooting as well. They're shooting 37.5% from the outside, but they have been costed by their turnovers. Both of these teams really have been turning the ball over a little bit too much. In terms of turnovers per possession, it's been a little bit more glaring with St. Peter's just because they do play at a little bit more of a slow tempo, as both of these teams darn near about 13 to 13.5 turnovers per game. Kevon Riley for this Delaware team has been able to shoot 40% from 3, 13 points per contest, but it is the St. Peter's team that their strength being able to guard the three-point line. This team is 28th in the country in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. It's a St. Peter's team that has their numbers warped a little bit as well defensively by the fact that they have played against quite a few up-tempo teams. They played against UMBC, Fairleigh Dickinson, Rutgers, UMass Lowell. So I do think that their overall defense going to be coming back to earth just a little bit more with this regard, and I do think that they hold down the Delaware team from the perimeter. That allows them to be able to get the job done in this game. So did set my line at 3. I'm going to lay the 2 to 2.5 with St. Peter's, and then going to be writing up the under as well. Semi-total at 139. 879, 880 on the betting board. It is Providence, and they play host to St. John's. St. John's is a 5.5 to a 6-point road favorite. Total on this game between 143.5 to a 144, and I did say St. John's is a 6.5-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the 6. Now, Dunkin' Donuts Arena, one of the best home court environments that you're going to find in all of college basketball, but right now with Providence, you're dealing with a very banged-up team. Bryce Hopkins, he has been in and out of the fold. He has played in just 3 games thus far this season because he was out there. He was a big part of that win over DePaul, and then he just frankly did not play in that game against St. Bonaventure. We're not quite sure why, and if he does play in this game, may not be fully 100%, still coming off of major injury, so he might not be 100% all season long. And for St. John's, you know what you're able to expect out of this backcourt. You've got Kadari Richmond playing in tandem with Davion Smith. These two guys giving you combined about 19.5 points, 11 boards, nearly 10 assists, 3 steals per game, and right now Smith is shooting 38% from 3-point range. It felt like Rick Pitino after he made the comments of bookmakers being drunk after setting DePaul as a 14 to 14.5 point underdog, was able to get through to his team as they completely bludgeoned them. Suji Ejiofor has been able to give you 2.5 blocks, 7.5 boards per game, and he should be able to control things against a Providence team that does not have a single guy that gives you north of 5 rebounds per game. Oswin Itharwasuni, hopefully I said that correctly, he's been able to give you about 5 rebounds per game. Like Bryce Edesonko, these guys have been okay down low, and Hopkins has been your best rebounder when he's been out there. But again, what are you going to be able to get out of him? Are you going to be able to get him out there on the floor, as he's very questionable for this game? You've got Jerron Pierre, who's been the main scorer for the team. He and Bentley Joseph combining for about 6 assists per game for a Providence team that is playing a little bit more slowly. 12 turnovers per game, a little bit less than savory. And for Providence, they are shooting about 33.5% from 3-point range, with Wesley Cardit being able to chip in there about 9 points, 4 boards per contest. But I do look at this Providence team as one that is just really losing their way right now. And even though Providence is not giving you a lot in terms of the offensive side of things, we've just seen this defense be able to slide a little bit as well. Because Providence, if they were playing on all cylinders with regards to their defense, I think that they'd be able to hold in this game. But in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, Providence about 69th in all of college basketball. And the St. John's team really finding a little bit of a different gear with their defense. They're 22nd with this regard. So I did set my total at a 138.5 here at the north of 143. I'm going to be in on the under, and I'm going to be willing to lay up to 6 with St. John's. 881, 882 on the card. Appalachian State is on the road against North Texas. North Texas, a 12 to 12.5 point favorite. Total on this game, it is 123.5, and with North Texas, I could only set them as a favorite of 11 points. So I'm going to be willing to take the points with Appalachian State. Very much a down year for Appalachian State. North of 13.5 turnovers per game. Still playing out a relatively slow and controlled style. And this still hasn't been a terrible defense. They're inside the top 140 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Obviously outgunned by a North Texas team that right now, despite the fact that they are in the bottom 20 in terms of total possessions per game, they're a very efficient defense. 19th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. But again, it does come back to, are you going to have enough possessions to be able to win this game by this big of a margin? Because even though Appalachian State is turning the ball over more than what you'd like, and North Texas has been a top 10 team in the country in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, you still have 2 guys that are top flight guys. CJ Hundley is 6'11", 14 points, 5 boards, shooting about 32.5% from 3-point range. Miles State does need to control things a little bit more with the 3 turnovers per game, but 5 assists, 40% 3-point shooter, supplying the team with about 13 points per game. Jalen Brun has been able to do a nice job of coming in, giving the team about 7.5 points per game as well. Has clearly been dealing with a little bit of an injury, but had 9 points massive 15 minutes in that game against Louisiana a few days ago, so you should be all good to go in this one. Flip side, have a North Texas team that just has good versatility in general. They've lost a lot of the backcourt from the season ago, but they've done a nice job mixing and matching with Aiden Wright being Mr. Wright, coming in from CSUN, 13 points per game, shooting 40% from three-point range, while Latrell Jostle has been able to supply the team with 38% three-point shooting. You don't necessarily have that one primary rebounder as Rondell Walker, Jonathan Massey. Both of these guys are giving you about 5 rebounds per game, but the way that Grant Newell is fit like a glove for the team at 6'9" gives you some versatility, shooting north of 40% from three-point range. He's given the team 8+ points to 3 out of the last 4 games. Does feel like he's starting to get things down quite a bit for this team, and I do think that for Appalachian State, they're going to have a little bit of difficulty there. But again, I do think that the Appalachian State defense is going to hold up just enough to hang in this game, as Appalachian State has now given up 68 points or fewer and far. Their last 5 games, it is a North Texas team that, to their credit, even though they do play super duper slow, they've gotten to at least 68 points in 3 out of their last 4 games. But I do think that this game is going to be a little bit of a slog. Set my total at a 125. I think that we've gone perhaps just a little bit too low with regards to this total, because I do think that with North Texas, some of the turnovers that they force will lead to fast break buckets. But again, I do think that the 12 a little bit too lofty as well. So I'm going to be willing to take those points to that Appalachian State and in on the over. 883, 884 on the card. It is Dayton and Cincinnati. They're going to be playing on a neutral court out there at Heritage Bank Center, and right now with Cincinnati, they're 3 to 3.5 point favorites. Total is 138.5. Did somebody total at 137? I'm in on the under. Dayton is outside the top 330 in terms of total possessions per game, so I think that they're going to be looking to control this game, play it very slowly. And for Cincinnati, this is a top 25 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. They've got good overall metrics, but we saw them get held down a little bit more by Xavier, and this Cincinnati team has really beaten up on, shall we say, one of the lesser non-conference schedules in all of college basketball. They've been playing against the Arkansas Pine Bluff teams and what have you, and that has led to their offensive numbers being very warped. And I do think that we're going to see a fall-off from their current 38% three-point shooting. I like what Simeon Lucasius brings to the table. 16 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists as a 6'7", 6'8", do-it-all sort of guy. And Jizzle James, 5 assists to 1.8 turnovers per game. That has been tremendous. This is going to be one of the better rebounding teams in all of college basketball, with Aziz Bendango down low, give you 2 blocks, 5.5 or so rebounds per game. But even though Dayton, I think, might lose that battle on the glass, you've had Enoch Cheeks be just so versatile for the team. 14.5 points, 7.5 boards. Nate Santos at 6'7", he's been shooting 44% from 3. Cheeks is shooting more like 41% from the outside. It's a Dayton team that's not going to inflict a lot of turnovers on you, but they do such a good job of just running their offense as well. Fewer than 9 turnovers per game. We saw what they were able to do in the second half of that game against Marquette. As for Dayton, this is a team that their numbers are a little bit warped in terms of their defense. They're 165th in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Much of that is because they had to play a really, really tough slate in that tournament in Maui, and I do think that that's something that you do want to be paying attention to this time of year, because with Dayton, they did have to play against so many rock-solid teams with that regard. And right now, Dayton, if you look at games played away from home in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, they're actually number 4 in all of college basketball. Going against a team like Cincinnati, I do think that that's going to be going downward a little bit, but I think that Zed Key is going to be able to do a solid job down low, giving you over a block, 4 rebounds per game, and just all about finding a bit of a better role for Posh Alexander, which does feel like he's starting to find his just footing with his program a little bit more as well. He's been a little bit more of an ancillary, shall we say, distributor. He's been able to get the team 7 steals in the last 4 games as well. Been a rock-solid defender. I do think that this is going to be a little bit more of a controlled game with regards to defense, not expecting a lot of possession. So did set my total more around 137. I'm in on the under, and at 3.5 plus, we'll take the points with Dayton, set them as a 3-point dog. 885, 886 on the betting board. Now we get out to El Paso, Texas, as Akron and Yale play a neutral court game, and Yale is a 3 to a 3.5 point favorite. Total on this game is 155.5. With Yale, I did set them as a favorite of 4.5 points, so I'm going to be willing to lay the 3.5 with Akron. This team has just seen a massive fall off with their defense. Now, credit where it is due, the offense has been very good for this team, but they're back outside the top 150 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Typically, this is an Akron team that they do a really nice job on the glass of getting after it, and again, they are a team that ranks in the top 90 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, but they're also averaging about 28 points fewer per 100 possessions when they're away from home rather than when they are at home, and I just don't think that the defense is going to be able to survive in this game against a Yale team that they're more around about 200th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Yale not necessarily playing super duper up tempo, but they're not playing as slowly as they have in the past, but did set my total 154.5, as you do have unfamiliar surroundings for both of these teams. They're both teams that are from the more northern part of the country, and now they're having to play in the great state of Texas, so That's a little bit strange for them, but John Polakidis, I think, is going to be the best player in this game. He's been able to supply Yale 21 points per contest. He's been a career about 40% three-point shooter. I love what he's been able to bring to the table. Baz Embank, he missed a game or two earlier in the season, but should be good to go here. 12 points, 5.5 assists per game, shooting in the high 30s from three-point range. And then you've got guys like a Nick Townsend, like an Isaac Selskar, who are able to give you about 6 or so rebounds per game. Akron does have James Okonkwo down low, who's been able to give you 8 or so rebounds per game. But other than Okonkwo, you're not really getting a ton down low. Isaiah Gray, who he's got a lot of familiarity with the Ivy League, began his career with Cornell. He's been so versatile for the team. A steal, 10 points, 5.5 boards, 3 assists per game. Right now shooting 45.5% from three-point range. And Nate Johnson throws in there 13 points along with the other Johnson and Mr. Tavari Johnson. These guys have been nice go-to scorers, but I do think that for Yale, they're going to do a nice job controlling things on the glass. This has been a Yale team that has been able to do a solid job when they needed to on defense as well, because even though the offense has really been able to get cranked up, they've been able to win games where it's first to 80. This is still a unit that has given up 64 points or fewer in now 5 out of their last 7 games as well. So I do think that Yale going to be able to control this game a little bit more. I did set my total as a result at a 154.5, so I'm going to be willing to dive in on the under. And for Yale, willing to lay up to 4 with them. This is the last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit the extra games. 887, 888. UTEP plays us to Jackson State. Jackson State, a 14.5 to a 15-point underdog. And total on this game, it is 140 to 140.5. And I did set UTEP as an 18.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number for UTEP. They do such a good job of being able to generate turnovers. Once again, back in the top 15 in the country in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, and now they've been able to ascend with their three-point shooting. They're now a top 75 team in the country with regards to being able to pop in from three-point range, so that's going to be big against the Jackson State team that it's just been really rough for them. They were finally able to get Deshaun Ruffin back out there on the floor for a game or two. Now he's back out of the fold. It seems like he may have re-aggravated an injury. I'm not sure what his status is, but man, that is a guy that used to be a McDonald's All-American. Looked like he was going to be able to just transcend this Jackson State team, but unfortunately he's been robbed by injury and has only been able to play in 2 games this far this season. You do have a pair of guys in J.B. Mitchell along Dorian McMillan, though, who have been able to supply the team with a combined 23 points per contest. You've got Mitchell shooting about 36.5% from three-point range, but for Jackson State, they're outside the top 300 in terms of ball security, turn the ball over darn near 16 times per game. Do think that you've got a little bit of upside with Juan Urania. He was over at Alabama State a few seasons ago where he was able to shoot 40% from 3, just 24% from distance as far this season. And for Jackson State, you do have Romeo Mansell, who's able to give you 8 rebounds per game. That could be a little bit of an edge for Jackson State, as UTEP does not have a single guy that gives you north of 5 rebounds per game, with Kevin Kalu leading the way with that regard. But with UTEP, just have so much in the backcourt with Otis Frazier along with Corey Camper Jr. both giving you about 13.5 points per game. And Camper, he's been one of the top players in all of college basketball in terms of generating steals. Between the two of them, 4.3 steals per contest. They're shooting as a collective darn near 40% from three-point range. And one of the more underrated ads in the transfer portal, Devin Barnes, who comes on over from the WAC. He was over at Tarleton State. He's given the team 37% three-point shooting, 11 points per game. Do think that UTEP dominates on their home floor. I set them as an 18.5 point favorite. Want to lay the number. Set my total 144.5 as well, with the way that UTEP has been popping it from 3. So in on the over, and now we hit the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306-517, 306-518. Houston Christian is going to be on the road against Texas A&M, and A&M finds themselves as 31 to 31.5 point favorites. Totals between 139 to 140, and I'm on delay with Texas A&M. I did set them as a 33.5 point favorite. The Texas A&M team last year was number 1 in all of college basketball in terms of percentage of missed shots that resulted in an offensive rebound, and they're picking up right where they left off. They're back at number 1. 42.5% of their missed shots result in an offensive rebound. Now, it's a Houston Christian team that's looking to turn over a little bit of a new leaf under Ron Cottrell. This is always a super-duper up-tempo team. They decided to part ways in the offseason, so that has meant a little bit of a regime change. And for Houston Christian, they've really been looking to slow things down under Craig Doty, who comes in from Emporia State, but hasn't resulted in very clean offense whatsoever. They're not really turning the ball over a lot, with about 11 turnovers per game, but they rank about 300th in the country, shooting 30.5% from three-point range, and they have absolutely no size to match up with Texas A&M. Right now, you don't have a single guy in the roster giving you north of 4.5 rebounds per game. As Peyton Rogers right now leading the way with that regard. Elijah Brooks, who comes in from North Dakota, is able to give you about 11 points, 4 boards per contest, but These guys aren't really shooting it well from three-point range. They're not really doing a great job in terms of guarding things on the interior as well, outside the top 350 in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage. Texas A&M has had their issues shooting the three over the last few seasons in general, but you should be able to see the backcourt duo in Wade Taylor along with Reed Phillips, who have been able to combine for about 29.5 points per game, really take hold, find these guys like Pharrell Payne, Henry Coleman down low. They're able to do a rock-solid job there of being able to get the job done. As for A&M, you got 5 separate guys to give you at least 4 rebounds per game, including the versatility of Jace Carter, who's been really doing a nice job generating about a steal and a half per contest. As well, Anderson Garcia is actually shooting 37.5% from 3, only about 5.5 points per game, but 7 boards per game. Solomon Washington should be able to hold it down as well. So I did set Texas A&M as a 33.5 point favorite, willing to lay it in. So I told 137.5 with Houston Christian's slow and controlled style, so in on the under as well. These next two games do not have numbers. These are the HBCU Chris Paul Challenge, 306-619, 306-620. From Mohegan Sun, you've got Grambling State and Norfolk St doing battle. I've got my handicap all set where I set Norfolk State as a 4.5 point favorite, so I'm willing to lay up to 4 with them, 5 or more taking the points with Grambling, and then semi-total at a 140.5, so 140 or less, in on the over, 141 or higher, I'm in on the under. For Norfolk State, this was a team that entering into yesterday, they were well outside the top 200 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. We saw them absolutely take it to Alabama State yesterday, and do have to have question marks with regards to this Grambling team because I just have been looking at their three-point shooting. They entered into yesterday shooting about 40% as a collective. Don't necessarily think that's sustainable. Do think that they're going to lock down a little bit more with their defense as they entered into yesterday about 255th in the country with regards to their three-point shooting defense. This has been a Norfolk State team that has been just a machine on offense this season with Brian Moore Jr. being able to give you more. He's supplying the team with about 18 to 19 points per contest. Entered into yesterday shooting 58.5% from 3, and Christian Ings entered into yesterday shooting 56% from three-point range. Should be seeing a little bit of a downtick there, but I also do think that Sincere McMahon, who comes over from Winthrop, entered into yesterday, only give the team about 6.5 points per contest. There's some upside there. You don't really have anyone pounding the glass for Norfolk State, though. Jalen Myers, right now, your leading rebounder with about 5 boards per contest. Meanwhile, Grambling, you've got Antoine Burnett, who's got all sorts of versatility, a little bit north of 5 boards, 13.5 points, while shooting 50% from three-point range going into yesterday. It's not a team that has quite as much size as they've had in the past, but you've got Ernest Ross, who comes over from NC State, PJ Easton. These guys, they're able to give you about 5 or so rebounds per game, so I think that Grambling going to be able to remain relatively lively in this game, but I do think that in the end, you are going to see Norfolk State be able to get the job done, so one to lay up to 4 with them, 5 or more, taking those points with Grambling, and then 140 or less in on the over, 141 or higher the under, and then 306-621, 306-622, another game that's off the board. Delaware State and Alabama State. Reason why these games are off the board is that bookmakers do not want to put up a line while you still have games in progress with these teams and everything like that in case of an injury happens. But that said, I did set Alabama State as a 7.5 point favorite, so one to lay up to 7 with them, 8 or more, taking those points with Delaware State. And then with regards to the total, I did set my total to where 151 or less. I'm in on the over, 152 or higher, the under. Now, nice win for Delaware State yesterday. You saw the regression for Grambling come through from the three-point shooting front, and I do think that Martez Robinson is going to be the best player out there on the court. He has been really good for the Delaware State team. He's been able to supply them with 15 plus points per contest, throws in there about 6 boards per game. Was expecting a little bit more out of the likes of Alston Andrews, along with Raymond Somerville. Down low, these two guys entered into yesterday, averaging about 8 to 9 rebounds per game, and Alabama State, after a less than savory loss yesterday against Norfolk State, I think they're in for a big-time bounce-back spot, as I do think that for Alabama State, after they went something like 6 of 30 from the floor to begin the day yesterday, and they have been looking much more efficient with their offense, that they're going to be able to bounce back here. For some reason, TJ Madlock was coming in off the bench yesterday. That's actually the coach's son. Still ended up with like 17 points, but I mean, he's been a do-it-all dynamo, about 13 points, 5.5 boards, 3.5 assists. He really impacts the game in so many different ways. CJ Hines was dealing with a little bit of an injury. They've gotten him back. He had 13 points yesterday, and I do think that for Alabama State, they're going to be able to do a little bit of a better job in terms of being able to guard, as well as this has been an Alabama State team that has been getting gash from the outside. They're allowing opponents to shoot in that neighborhood about 35.5% from three-point range, and Delaware State has had their issues on defense as well, entering into yesterday 292nd in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per-possession basis. I do like that you would get back some of those pieces from a season ago that really weren't able to get out there. Corey Perkins was limited to just 3 games last year. He's been able to give the team 3+ assists per contest. I do think that this is going to be an up-and-down game. This has been an Alabama State team that has been looking to play very fast. They just weren't able to put the ball in the basket yesterday, but overall for this Alabama State team, they are checking in terms of total possessions per game in the top 75 in all of college basketball. Delaware St more around about 100. So I did set a relatively high total here, 151 or less, and on the over 152 or higher the under. And for Alabama State, I'm going to be adjusting things a little bit more. I am going to be willing to lay up to a 6 with them, 7 or more. Going to be willing to take the points with Delaware State just based on what we did see yesterday in that action. 306, 623, 306, 624. Holy Cross is going to be on the road. They're going to be facing off against Siena, and Siena does find themselves as a favorite of 4.5 points. Total on this game, you're going to be getting this in the neighborhood of 131 to 131.5, and with Siena, I did set them as a favorite of 6.5 points. So I'm going to be willing to lay it, and I'm going to be willing to make this one of my write-ups. As for Siena, I do think that they take it to a Holy Cross team that still has been all sorts of relatively rough with regards to their defense. This Holy Cross team, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, is checking in at 318th in the country. Meanwhile, it's a Siena unit that they still have a little bit of work to be done on their defense, but they're now a top 175 team with this regard. They should be able to do a relatively solid job down low, though. You do have a Holy Cross team that's also a top 60 team in the country with regards to the three-point shooting percentage. They brought in a lot of these guys that have good versatility at like 6'5", 6'6". They're able to pop it from three. Max Green being the main of those at 6'6", giving out 3 assists, 13.5 points per game. He's been shooting 39.5% from three. Joe Nugent, similar 6'6" guy. He's been shooting right around about 39.5% from the outside. Chipping in there about 11.5 points. Gives you about 4.5 boards per contest. You've got a lot of that going on, and they just got Gabe Warren back into the fold as well. One of their main guards that was out there for the first 2 games of the season was a projected starter and then was knocked out for quite some time, so that is going to be to the benefit of Holy Cross. But even with that, I do think that Siena should be able to go out there, get the job done, because they've got in the backcourt Major Freeman, a top 75 junior college transfer according to JUCORecruiting.com, has lived up to the billing, been able to supply the team with 14.5 points, shooting 36.5% from three, throwing in their 2 assists per game, and it's just a team that in general has done a good job of doling it out. Justice Schultz along with Marcus Jackson have been able to combine for about 5.5 assists per game. Team really isn't amazing on the glass. You don't have a single guy that gives you north of 4.5 rebounds per game, but Miles Wilmoth at 6'10" comes in for Butler. He's got some size. He's been able to give the team about 4.5 boards in 17.5 minutes per game, and I do think that Siena going to take it to a Holy Cross team that's had a very tough time with regards to their defense. As for Holy Cross, they themselves with regards to their offense has not gone past the 70-point plateau in each of their last 5 games. So I do think that Siena going to be able to take control of this game. I did, as a result, set my total at a 132.5, so I'm going to be in on this total over. I think that you get just enough late game fouling and you get just enough scoring, with Holy Cross being a little bit lackadaisical on defense here, so in on the over. And with regards to write up Siena willing to lay up to 6 with them. 306, 625, 306, 626. NC Central is playing us at Longwood. Longwood is a road favorite of 3 points, and total on this game, you're going to be finding it at a 145. Made my total 144.5. I'm seeing a 145.5 out there as well. I'm going to be in on the under. Recognize that NC Central, while outside the top 250 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, has been a rough go of it for them. But for Longwood, you also have a team that's been shooting darn near about 30% from 3-point range, which is a reason why I could only set them as a 2.5 point favorite. So you're at the 3. Won't take the points with NC Central. NC Central has been one of the worst teams in the country with regards to their rebound rate. And Longwood, as a collective, they're not awful on the glass. They don't have a single guy, though, that gives you north of 4.5 rebounds per game. Michael Christmas being the main guy. It has been Christmas for him with 11.5 points, 4.5 boards. The last year he's shooting closer to about 38% from 3, down to about 30% thus far this season. It's a Longwood team that is turning the ball over about 13 times per game. They do a nice job in terms of being able to lock down and not necessarily giving you a lot of clean looks. They've been able to generate about 8.5 steals per game as well. And for Longwood, even though they don't necessarily have someone that is absolutely incredible with regards to being up at the glass, they've done a nice job of being able to hold up with regards to their 3-point shooting defense. On the 2-point shots, they're 327th in all of college basketball. So that's a little bit of an issue for a defense. And overall, it's about 106th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. KJ McClurg, along with Cooper Garland, have been able to combine for 20 points per game. Garland, who comes on over from Drake, 4 assists per contest, 2 turnovers. So he's been able to flow things very cleanly there. But again, only shooting 30% from 3-point range. That's a bit of an issue when you go up against an NC Central team that has Po Boy King giving you 16 points per game. Keshawn Porter has been able to throw in there about 12 points per contest. And these 2 guys give you north of 3 steals per game. And NC Central, one of the better teams in all of college basketball in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. NC Central also having their issues with regards to their 2-point shooting defense as well. They are 362nd in all of college basketball. So that should be able to get some nice, clean, open looks for this Longwood team. But I do think that in the end, you're going to have an NC Central team that is going to do just enough in terms of generating turnovers to be able to find a way to hold in this game, with NC Central in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis right now clocking in 20th in all of college basketball. So they've been really good on that front. You've got down low a guy that's able to give you about 4.5 boards in Perry Smith, who's also been able to throw in their darn near steal per game as well. He's got some relatively good versatility. They are looking to the people and Anthony Peoples as well. He just made his season debut. He was able to give the team 8 points in that one at 6'9". He should be able to lend a little bit more size and versatility moving forward, as they've been dealing with the injury to Josh Smith, which has been hurting this team's depth for quite some time. But along those lines as well, Deontay Johnson giving you 4 assists per game. Not really too much of a scorer at about 7 points per game, but he's been able to make a nice impact for this team as well. So I do think that these two teams can have a little bit of difficulty from the outside, so I'm in on the under. And at 3+, I do think that NC Central generates enough steals to be able to hold in this game, taking the points. 306-627, 306-628. You've got BYU playing us with Florida A&M. A&M is an underdog of 34 points, and your total is 148.5. Set my line at 33.5. 34 is my minimum buy point here on Florida A&M, but it is a buy point regardless. And when it comes to BYU, this team can be a little bit hit or miss with regards to some of the younger guys. Like, you know what you're going to be able to get down low out of Kebakita. I've been loving what I've been seeing out of him. He's been able to supply the team with 8.5 plus rebounds per game. Fusani Traore is able to throw in there 7 plus boards per contest. Guys that don't really have versatility, but they do a nice job locking things down low. And then Igor Demine, he had 1 or 2 bad games when it came to that game against Providence. That was all sorts of awful, and we have not seen him ever since then. But even with him out of the fold, Richie Saunders has been able to pick up the load, 12.5 points, shooting 40% from 3-point. Just a team as a whole that's shooting 36% from the outside, but not having Demine out there means that you're going to see a little bit more Canyon catchings. And he's been able to give the team a combined 18 points in the last 2 games, but his 3-point shooting has just been all over the place. Right now, he's shooting 29.5% from 3. I don't think that this guy has seen a shot that he doesn't like. It's all about trying to get more of the ancillary guys, like a Dawson Baker's shooting 39% from 3-point range, the ball a little bit more. And for Florida A&M, I've been liking what I've been seeing out of Sterling Young. He comes in from Charlotte. He's been able to slide the team with 12 points per game, and I do think that Florida A&M legitimately is heading in the right direction. They got a nice win over Presbyterian a few weeks ago. They've been playing just a little bit more respectable with regards to their game in general, as well as you have a guy from the NAIA ranks in Patrick Carey taking over when he was at the NAIA level at St. Mary's of Texas. His team's always played very good defense. They're always relatively good on the glass. Doesn't necessarily have the size to be rock solid down low, as right now Tyler Shirley has been your top rebounder with about 4.5 boards per contest, and he's missed half the season. Shakir O'Neal, that's actually the son of Shaquille O'Neal, 9 points, 4 boards, versatility with him. Like, unlike his father, he shoots 37% from 3 as a whole. This team is shooting about 34.5% from 3. Jordan Chapman has come into the fold. He shot north of 45% from 3-point range, so you've been able to have this Florida A&M team look a little bit better from the outside. BYU has been a little bit hampered, and for Florida A&M certainly has been less than savory when they've been going up against Division I competition in terms of their overall scoring, as last time they faced off against a Division I team and they scored north of 67 points. That would be against SMU when they scored 73. That was the second game of the season. That's the only time that they've really been able to break the 65-point plateau. Meanwhile, you do have a BYU team that's playing quite frenetically in these bye games. They have been able to get to 80 plus on the regular, but doing a relatively solid job locking down on defense. But with the way that Florida A&M has been able to pop it from 3-point range recently, with the way that they just don't have a lot of size in general, they've had to crank up their tempo just a little bit. It is a BYU unit that they themselves are looking to not necessarily play at a breakneck pace. They're more of a mid-tempo team, about 185th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, but with Florida A&M speeding up, did set a little bit of higher total, set my total at 151.5, so in on the overhand at plus 34 or higher, going to be willing to take the points with Florida A&M, and we wrap things up with 306-629, 306-630. It is Loyola Marymount, and they are going to be playing against the Southern. Southern is an underdog of 8 points, and your total on this game is 137, set my line at a 7, so here at the 8, I'm going to be willing to take those points with Southern. Southern has been one of the better teams in all of college basketball, being able to generate turnovers. In terms of a turnovers per game basis, the Southern team, they are ranking 65th in all of college basketball in terms of turnovers generated, so I've been liking what I've been seeing there. Now, where Southern is going to lose the battle is down low. They have to go up against a Loyola Marymount team that I'm not going to call them like monsters of the Midway in terms of the way that they pound the boards or anything like that, but it's a Loyola Marymount team that has been able to get some good contributions out of Alex Merk-Valdez, who's been able to to give you about 6.5% rebounds per game. Now it's a whole Loyola Marymount, about 250th in the country with regards to rebound rate. That still is a bit better than what you've been able to get out of this Southern team. At Southern, just with not a lot of size, 252nd in all of college basketball. But Derek Tazzino has been able to give you about 5 to 6 rebounds per game. That should be able to keep this team lively on the boards front. And then you've had Jordan Johnson do a really nice job in the backcourt. He's been able to supply the team with 11 points per game, while you've got the gentleman from France in Tijani Dumasi, who's been able to do a nice job of being able to dish it out. Was out for the last few games due to injury, returned in that game against Ole Miss, and he only had 4 points, but 9 assists to 0 turnovers. He has been very efficient with the ball since his return, so you do like to see that for Southern overall. They shoot about 34.5% from three-point range, and they play a relatively up-tempo brand of basketball while turning the ball over just 12 times per game. That's been nice to see. You've also been able to get about 11 points, 3 assists per game out of Michael Jacobs, who's been a nice ancillary sort of contributor, and then Will Johnson on the flip side for Loyola Marymount. He's been able to supply the team with 15 points, 3.5 assists, shoots 34% from 3. Now, what is going to be an issue for Southern is deal with Jevin Porter, who's a 6'11" do-it-all sort of player, 13 points, 8 boards. At 6'11", he's able to pop threes, so he only shoots about 31% from three-point range. He plays a little bit more around the perimeter than I would like for a guy of his size. And then it's all about being able to get these guys like Jan Vide, MJ Amy, these two guys that combine for about 12.5 points per game that have transferred into the program, going a little bit more, as they just haven't given you as much from the outside as you'd expect. Loyola Marymount not turn the ball over a ton, 11 turnovers per game, but only shooting about 32% from three-point range, while they themselves have been relatively solid with regards to their defense, 135th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. But you have a Southern team that they've been having to play bye games all throughout the year. They've had to deal with a whole bunch of travel, and they've been able to hold up with a top 200 defense. So I do think that they're going to be able to do a rock solid job here. I do think that Marymount is going to be able to get going a little bit more with their offense. I do think that Jevin Porter is going to be an issue for Southern, but I do think that Southern is going to find a way to be able to generate some turnovers. They themselves, Southern, has been able to get to at least 70 points in 4 of their last 5 games, and you do have a Loyola Marymount team that they themselves have been a little bit hit or miss with regards to their defense, giving up 70 plus in 3 of their last 5 games. So I did sell my 139 in on the over, and I'm willing to take those points with Southern. And that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Ryan Mcintyre, does great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Otherwise, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast by that 5-star review. And I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the college basketball season on this podcast. I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.